Hi everyone, welcome to the only homemade, handmade current affairs news talk television program probably in the world. I'm Jeremy Cordeaux, and if it's in the news, on your mind, close to your heart, getting up your nose or on your chest, it is in the court of public opinion. Thanks so much for joining us, and I hope you stay and enjoy the show. Now running for a full hour. Our guests today, Vili Milisits, a wonderful success story. You know, he came to Australia as a refugee, I think at the age of 9, and he has made a fantastic business. He is the pie maker to the world. Great South Australian success story. Steph Key has for the umpteenth time tried to get her decriminalisation of prostitution bill through. And you will meet her on the program. She's determined to get this bill through. Whether that's a good thing, whether you agree with that in the court of public opinion, I guess it would be a fairly hoary old chestnut, if I could use that expression, which is probably not the best way to describe it. And also marine parks. Now, I don't know if you know anything about marine parks. I don't. It's pretty easy for the Liberal Party and for the Labor Party, and I guess they both agree on this, that let's have a park. Who's going to be against having a park? Sounds like a good motherhood thing to have. Well, when you lock up 2,300 square miles of ocean, you've got to scratch your head and wonder, how do you fence it off? What's it going to achieve? What is it going to do to a country like Australia, where we import something like 72% of the seafood that we enjoy? In Australia, we import 72% of our seafood? It seems to be really strange, and that's not going to get any better if we quarantine all of this ocean from recreational fishers and commercial fishers. Michael Angelakis knows all about this. He'll join us, as I hope lots of people in Rundle Mall and other guests in the program, as we move through the court of public opinion. And as always, thank you to our sponsors and our supporters and our new supporters who came on just last week. Here Artistic on King William Road, Tailors of Distinction on Unley Road, and that great Australian wine brand Yulamba. Now, somebody on, when we went out there on the street and asked about this, and it'll turn up in the jury as I've said, the question as to whether or not we should decriminalise prostitution. Somebody rather cheekily said, well, I don't know about this prostitution bill. I think somebody should just pay it, which on the surface seems reasonable. Let me introduce you to Steph Key, the member for Ashford.
Yes.
And a promoter of this bill for how many years?
Well, it really started in the 80s, actually. Before I was a Member of Parliament, I worked at the Working Women's Centre.
Yes.
And we had a number of sex workers come into the centre and talk about the need for their work to be decriminalised. But there's been many campaigns. There's been about 6 attempts, I think, for members of Parliament to try and change the legislation. Not always for good. Sometimes in the last round, I remember there was a bill to further criminalise sex workers.
Further criminalise? Further
criminalise,
meaning?
Yes. That there would be higher penalties, there would be imprisonment. At the moment, when a sex worker does get charged, it usually involves a fine and obviously a black mark on their record.
What's the difference between decriminalising and legalising?
Well, what we've really looked at is the two different models. In New South Wales, we have a decriminalised model, and in New Zealand, we have a decriminalised model. In Victoria, we have a legalised model. And I think the main difference is that the process. So in Victoria, for example, sex workers have to be registered. Brothel owners need to go through a procedure to set up those brothels or sex premises.
And some of them are even on the stock exchange, aren't they?
Yes, yes, yes. So there's a whole process that goes with it. What we're arguing by decriminalisation is that we want the industry to be the same as other industries, but have the appropriate industry checks and balances, rights and responsibilities for workers, so that there's no victim in the system.
So it doesn't deter you that each time you put it up, it doesn't get up?
Well,
if you'll pardon the expression.
Sure. Last time round, Parliament was prorogued, so I decided to further consult in the community and come up with a bill, which is the one that I had before Parliament. Minister Gail Gago also has the same bill before the Legislative Council. So we're sort of in the process at the moment of seeing whether I can recommit my bill, because I blame it all on Hillary Clinton. Because Hillary Clinton was in town, there was a few of my colleagues that were actually looking at the parade, so they were technically out of Parliament and they didn't hear the bells for the vote. And I know that two in particular were going to support the bill on the second reading. And what that means is that if you support a bill on the second reading, it means you can go into a committee stage and go through all the details and each clause of the bill. So there's certainly a majority of support for doing that. Whether at the end of the day there's support for the bill when we've gone through committee stage, my reckoning is that we might just get it up.
Well, they do say that if you decriminalise it and you maybe even glamorise it, that you're going to move young women into the profession who might not even think about it. But you've sort of legitimised maybe the whole thing.
Yeah, look, I'm sure there are concerns like that out there, but the evidence doesn't actually support that. New Zealand, for example, there was an extensive study done. The New Zealand system was decriminalised in 2003, and in 2008 there was a really big study done by a couple of the universities and the government, and it doesn't support that view that more people got into the industry. In fact, the numbers virtually stayed the same. There is a problem in New Zealand at the moment, which I should identify, where and I went to Wellington a couple of months ago to talk to sex workers and also their collective over there, as well as the government, to find out what had happened since 2003. And sure, there are some problems, but in places like Christchurch, you would understand that there would be general problems as well as some problems with some of the younger sex workers.
Yeah, but if you put New Zealand to one side, and they would logically not be as advanced in either their thinking or their legislating.
Sadly, New Zealand is ahead of us. In fact, New Zealand was the first place for women to get the vote.
Well, does that not embarrass some people?
Well, it embarrasses me. I keep on saying those New Zealanders,
Well, why isn't there
why
a
are they always beating us?
Why isn't there a national kind of approach to it? Same law in every state to cover the same situation?
I guess I just should say in New Zealand there's two tiers of government. There's a local government and then there's a federal government. So the legislation went through the federal government and there is some opportunities on a local level.
Now you would think, wouldn't you, that the New Zealanders would be behind us in legislation, not in front of us?
I know, it's very disappointing, I have to say.
Why isn't there a law that covers all cities, all states, federal law? Why do we have this mismatch?
Well, most of the legislation we're seeking to change, for example, in South Australia, the Criminal Law Consolidation Act, the Summary Offences Act are all state legislation. So in each state and territory, the laws relate to whatever the local laws are. So in our case, we need to amend both of those acts, which are very old. We're talking about 1930s.
Why do we need to change the law when, in actual fact, it really is up to the police? I mean, they probably look the other way. They probably don't want to get involved in all that paperwork. They don't want to get into people's bedrooms.
I think that's a good point. The priority is not the sex industry, but we also need to make sure that people feel secure. What my bill does is look at a couple of things, making sure that sex workers have the same rights as other workers and responsibilities, of course, and also that the public nuisance issue, and also making sure that sex work premises or sex work isn't performed near schools, childcare centres, places of worship.
What do the girls think? Are they wary about maybe having occupational health and safety inspections where at the moment I guess people can do what they like?
No, they're very much in support of my bill. They have got a couple of qualifications. They think that the provisions that I've got with regard to safe sex are unrealistic. I mean, they support safe sex, and obviously it's an important issue for them, but they think that that's a bit over the top, and they don't like the location provisions that I've put in, where I've said that sex work cannot be performed, you know, near educational facilities, childcare centres and the like.
Yeah, well, what people worry about, of course, is the status quo changes and the sky falls in.
Yeah.
Now, where they have changed the law, in Sydney and Melbourne, and if you've got brothels on the stock exchange, I guess it's a completely different ballgame. What has been the effect of that?
Well, we've got different laws all around Australia, but where there has been a liberalisation of the laws, things have got better, and it means that if there is a problem in the industry, people can go to the police. If they think that there's things happening that shouldn't be, that are against the law still, then you know, we've got to put a bit of sunshine onto those practices.
Yeah. Funny, you know, you can make something illegal, but you can never make it unpopular.
Yes.
And it's been around for a long time, has it not?
Certainly has, yes.
Yeah. Well, when does it come up again?
Well, what I'm seeking to do is to have the bill in the House of Assembly recommitted.
Yes.
So that would be next Thursday,
Right.
Thursday week.
Then it goes to the upper house?
The upper house will make a consideration on Wednesday.
Right. Good luck.
Thank you.
As a lady who believes in her subject, Steph Key, member for Ashford. This is the Court of Public Opinion.
Great house. Thank you. Rossdale built it for us. We love it. I'll show you through. We wanted a house with a barley feel, so we worked with our building consultant and designers to develop a plan we liked. They were so flexible and cooperative. When it was all designed, we got an absolute fixed price and they stuck to it. No extra charges, and their people were fantastic to work with.
We're actually thinking of building a new home.
You should go and see all their displays and talk to them about your ideas. It's the best thing we've ever done.
Scammels, South Australia's specialist estate auctioneers. Visit us at 7 Chapel Street, Norwood, or at www.scammelauctions.com.au.
As you know, Scammels is one of our supporters on this show, and as you know from last week when I showed you the little Coca-Cola commercial with all the old things go better with Coke ads on it. As you know, I go around and frequent the auction houses. And this week I got this. Now I swear that is the plaque that used to adorn the wall behind Mike Rand's desk when he was the Premier in his office in Victoria Square. It looks to me like exactly the same one. Anyway, I saw it and I thought the piping shrike, the symbol of South Australia, it's got to come on the show and join the collection on the wall. So in a commercial break or something, I'll pop that up there, swap that shield for the symbol of South Australia. Now, if you're talking about symbols of South Australia, let me introduce you to a man who has become I was going to say a legend in his own lunchtime. No, it's bigger than lunch. Ladies and gentlemen, Vili Milisits, better known and loved as Vili.
Correct. Well, good morning, Jeremy. How are you?
It's great to have you on the show. Yours is such a fantastic success story, isn't it? I mean, do you ever pinch yourself? A little boy at the age of 9 who came to Australia with nothing?
Yeah. At 4 in the morning, occasionally, my wife Rosemary and I, we actually discuss a few things that happen in our lives.
At 4 in the morning?
Yeah, that's my normal time awakening. It's something you can't get out of your system when you're in the baking industry.
Wouldn't you be a gentleman and let her sleep?
No.
No, I'm awake. Oh. You're awake.
She can sleep later. I got to work, you know, and she can go back and have a sleep. But we often have a bit of a chuckle. And you remember the hard times. You seem to forget the good times. And the hard times you always remember when you start a business and the hardships that are there. And starting at a tender age like I was at, 18 and a half years of age when I started my business. That was a hard task. I got married young and all sorts of. Rosemary and I, we just roll out of bed sometimes with tears of
Are
laughter.
you tearing up now?
No.
Oh, I thought you were.
No, it's just a bright light.
Well, your eyes are sparkling. put it that
Always
way.
do.
Yeah, yeah. It can't be easy to build an empire such as the one that you have built, because you now export pies to the world.
Yeah, we do about 23 countries. Some are small, but some are really genuinely becoming large. And I started small, so growth takes a while. You know, it's overnight success being in business for 45 odd years. So you got to look at the fact that I do pinch myself occasionally. I call myself the lucky guy, because I think coming to a country like Australia at a young age and refugee status, and I spent 18 months in refugee camps as a 9, 10-year-old, I look upon this is the land of opportunity and plenty. They call America a land of the free. I have been there, I've got nothing for free. But Australia is, I consider, opportunity, and it's still there.
Yes.
People say it's harder today than ever. I disagree.
So does that mean that you have some sympathy for the people who risk their lives and pay their entire fortune to hop on a rickety, leaky boat to come here? Or I take it you didn't come on a boat.
No, we came 28 days by ship from Trieste. I spent 11 months in England as a refugee, and in Graz in Austria, and a bit in France and Italy.
So you did it by the book.
Yeah, oh yes, 18 months waiting to get here. America would have taken us in 3 years. I had relatives in America, and we wanted to go there. My parents wanted to go there, but Australia was going to take us 18 months. So my father looked at it and says, "Where is Australia? We've never heard of it." So they spun the globe around, and there on the bottom they said, "There you go, mate."
And out of that, you picked Adelaide, though.
Yes, because my sister flew out. She was married and she was younger, so she got, because she was younger, she got an earlier exit into Australia, or visa into Australia. So she came to Adelaide. So we had somebody to sponsor us. So we didn't have to go to Bonagilla and all the campsites for the refugees that came out, because we had somebody sponsoring us in Adelaide. I love Adelaide. I reckon I've travelled the world, once as a refugee, twice or 3 times, a pocket full of money. I know which one I enjoyed more, but come back here, I honestly believe that we're living in paradise here.
You're a Knight of St. John,
Yes.
awarded an Order of Australia.
Yeah, I've been very lucky, as I say. I feel privileged in this country that people, it doesn't matter what background you're from, you can be honoured, or, you can, what's his name, get something that represents this country, which to me was an enormous thing. But more than that, my wife got one at the same time. And so she does all the charity work in our organisation. I just sign the cheques. I got an easy job.
Well, you at your stage of the business, you don't have to get up at 4 o'clock. You don't actually have to go in there and put the thing on your beard and your hair net and make the pies, but you still do it.
Yeah, I do it virtually every day. I spend at least 4 or 5 hours, at least that on the ovens and around the bakery. My business, you don't run from the office. There are certain businesses you can run from the office, but the baking industry is visual, it's sight, it's smell, it's the ultimate taste. Yeah. And I can smell trouble, because if something's not right, I'm there. Yeah. And my staff seem to think I have this inner sense that I can pick the problem before it actually happens, because I see it coming.
Pies are pies.
Yes.
To the uninitiated. But you have taken it to a whole new level. You've got gourmet pies, you've got pies that are, curry pies and beef and cheese pies and
everything you name
it. Is amazing.
To give you an idea, my first 10 years, I was trained as a continental pastry chef. So the first 10 years of my business, I actually made cakes. Immigration was coming no longer from Europe, it was come from Asia in the 70s. And then later on now from the Middle East. So we had to change tactics, because I was the youngest generation of my time of coming to Australia in the late 50s. So, I looked upon the fact we had to change. I didn't actually like what was out there, and so I looked at what the possibilities difference. Short crust, in my opinion, in Asia and in Europe is on cakes. It's not on pies.
It's the flaky pastry.
Yes. That's why we went flaky. We went spicy. We used to call them adults only, just to burn my lips.
What is your favourite pie?
My favourite.
I take it you eat them.
Oh yeah, yes, yeah. I would say green peppercorn at the moment. You change your taste, but I bought out steak and mushroom. When I first started, there was a pie. You walked in the deli or a shop.
Pie's a pie.
Yeah, a pie. They asked for a pie. That's all you got.
Have you ever made or invented a dud? One that just you thought it would work?
Yes. Turkey.
Turkey.
Turkey pie does not work in Australia. I think I should go to America with that one or somewhere else. But I believe I made something which in Queenslanders could eat cold.
What's the advice that you would give to a young entrepreneur or aspiring? What's something inspirational that you, a man, self-made man, can pass on? I'm going to, maybe have a think about that. I'm going to put you in the chair. Yes. That's the big chair at the back, and you can pontificate as you do so wonderfully well for 60 seconds, and you can maybe give us the benefit of your wisdom. Somebody told me, ask Vili about why he's so praises the communists.
Well, they actually, invaded Hungary in 1956.
Yes, that's what I mean.
So
why would you praise them?
I want to thank them profusely for sending me to a country like Australia with all these opportunities.
You see,
I'm a very positive person. There's only one thing negative about me, it's called negative gearing. Everything else is positive.
Yeah. You never have any down moments?
13 seconds, 12 seconds, 10 seconds, and that's it.
What star sign are you?
Virgo.
Oh, so am I.
Yeah. We like things that work.
Bless your heart. Stand by, folks. We're going to put him in the chair in just a minute.
Scammels, South Australia's specialist estate auctioneers. Visit us at 7 Chapel Street, Norwood, or at www.scammelauctions.com.au.
Thank you for joining us in the Court of Public Opinion. Now, if you haven't seen the show before, and I think we get new viewers every week, so if you're one of those, this is a segment where we take one of our special guests and put him or her in this very impressive chair. It is, I am told authoritatively, it is the chair of the Chief Justice of the High Court of England. And that's its pedigree, that's what I'm told anyway. And today, Vili Milisits is our special guest with these words of wisdom, sir. You have 60 seconds to change the city, the state, the country, or the world, or just give us the benefit of your wisdom.
I'd like 60 minutes. A word of wisdom to the younger generation of Adelaide, Australia, and maybe even internationally it works. If you should ever start anything, make sure you actually finish it, even if it's to your financial detriment, because it's a learning curve, whether it's a good point or a bad point. So the learning curve is crucial because knowledge is easy to buy, experience is hard to gain. So my version is that stick to it. You'll be successful if you stick to it one time or another. Your first business might not work, but your second one will because you've now got the wisdom. My talk, also I'd like to talk about that the federal government sent me 6 senators to actually talk about the food industry and what they can do for it. My question to them was, have you ever run a business? No. Have you ever worked in the food industry? No. What the hell are you doing here? That's my version. When you talk about the food industry, you actually got to look at that we employ so many people, but we don't get assistance. We don't look for assistance, but we'd like some help when it comes to certain conditions of employment. We'd like to have trained, skilled people, which we are lacking badly. It's about time that the government woke up that the food industry, from the farmer to the manufacturer to the retailer, we employed an awful amount of people.
Because it is terribly important that a country feeds itself. And I don't hear a lot of people talking about food security, all sorts of other security, social security, national security, but food security, the assurance that we actually will have food on our tables.
There's a new issue as well. The New Zealand legislation, Australia and NASFA, Australian New Zealand Health Department, they've got a problem. I used to buy apples from China. I went to have a look. I don't buy them from China anymore. I buy them from New Zealand. But then I found out that New Zealand packages, and we know about it, other countries' goods and puts them on a brand of New Zealand, product of New Zealand.
Well, that's hardly honest, is it?
Well, you know, honesty and business, and some people try to twist the fate of what's happening. I really believe that now we've got to be careful what comes out of New Zealand.
Yeah. It's been a great pleasure having you, Vili.
It's also been a pleasure for me. Thank you, Jeremy.
Just keep those pies coming.
Yeah, a few more million will do good.
Vili Milisits, and coming up we have the jury and 3 interesting topics that yesterday we took to the streets.
Hard, but just before you do, hey little devil, I'm gonna make it your girl. You're out.
Now, just before I introduce you to our jury, some of the things that we might remember this week for. 63, the first episode of Doctor Who premiered on British television. And it was only meant to go for 3 weeks or something, and it's gone for, 40 years? Oh, God knows. Bobby Lim got married to Dawn Lake. Gee whiz. The pencil sharpener was patented in 1897. The violet crumble bar was trademarked, and so were Minties. And we remember the 22nd, of course, for the assassination of the 35th President of the United States in Dallas, the wonderful John F. Kennedy. Interesting week. How's the panel?
Good, thank you.
I call you a panel, you're really a jury, because this is the court. So we have Coralie Cheney, Julia O'Neill, and Christine Esau. Now, I want to bounce this off you, because for lunacy, I don't think I've ever seen anything quite like this. Principals of schools say that they're becoming too frightened to let children have a go at doing anything. Teachers are forced to do risk assessments on activities like painting and drawing. Principals say common sense has been abandoned in this litigious age, with society's risk aversion starting to have a visible effect on children. They warn risk-taking is absolutely crucial to learning and development with kids, and some kids are visibly frightened to make a mistake even. What do you think, Christine?
Absolutely crazy. We did everything when we were children, and I'm here to say that I didn't break any bones, and I'd take a risk that my children could do the same thing. I think it's really hard on teachers, because I'm sure they want to do more than they can do. So who are the crazies? Is it the parents that are looking for opportunities to see somebody?
Yeah, what do you guys think?
What happened to the word freedom? As a child, that was the best time of my life. You could do anything, basically. And if you wanted to do a cartwheel, you could do a cartwheel, and you didn't get told off for it. And I think that's absolutely really ridiculous.
Yeah, you can't play chasing.
No.
You can't do any of the normal childhood things.
Exactly.
Because it's too risky.
But how do they learn in life to deal with problems? Because, you know, life doesn't always deal out good cards. And if you can't pick yourself up, brush yourself off and get on with life, how do they learn that for later in life if you can't paint and draw and it's a risk?
Now, Steph Key, we'll get to the stories that we took to the streets. Steph Key, for the umpteenth time, has put up her bill to legalise prostitution, or I guess decriminalise prostitution. So while you're having a think about that, this is what you had to say.
My name's Caitlin Petrie, and I'm in Rundle Mall to find out what you think about a number of hot topics.
Yes.
Yes?
I agree.
Why do you think that?
Because everyone needs a job, I guess, and some people are more desperate than others.
I think it just kind of makes a person look kind of lower leveled, and everyone should be equal, and yeah.
No, I don't think so.
Why?
Well, it's probably not moral.
I wouldn't have thought, no.
No, and the reason for that is?
Yeah, like my mate said, it's not really moral, so.
I think so, because I think it's obviously a profession that's said to be the oldest in the world, and if the demand isn't going to go away, then we should try and create a supply that's going to enable safety for both the people participating and the people supplying it as well.
Now, off the internet, and thank you for all this feedback, this is great. Kate Gerard says, yes, decriminalise prostitution. as they don't pay tax now. Well, are you jumping to a conclusion? I don't know. I mean, I don't know whether prostitutes pay tax. I don't know. Wayne Lawson says yes. Chris Carpenter says if we decriminalise prostitution, would it be just like the online gambling on television with a constant visual bombardment of boobs and asses and suggestive come see me now targeted advertising? Oh, you're a cynic. Legalising it would only let the government get their hands on their share of the dollars. What do you think?
I think it should be legalised only in that then it can be regulated so that hopefully there are some restrictions and some control over the industry. I would imagine that the tax issue is another one that I think is quite valid, but there'd be a lot of cash jobs in there, so I don't know quite how they would...
So if you're a prostitute and someone had knocked at the door and the guy said, I'm from the government and I'm here to help you, would you let him in?
Probably be a client.
I don't know. Next question.
I don't know. Julia, do you have an opinion?
I just look at decriminalisation. I think that it's an old profession. It's been around for many, many years. If we decriminalise it, it is going to stop, the drugs and the gangs coming over and exploiting the girls and the profession itself. And also to keep the foreigners away, the girls that want to come over from the Philippines and those different places, and introduce, and it can introduce another STD, like epidemic like AIDS, and let's just keep it in our backyard, so to speak, and keep it controlled.
Christine?
I think that if sex is legal, then whether you pay for it or get it for free shouldn't make a difference. And the other thing that I worry about, and maybe I'm not correct about this, but if it's a crime to have sex and pay for it, then you start to wonder whether there's a correlation between those people that therefore prey on vulnerable people in their own family or close to them because they don't want to commit a crime, so they look for other ways to satisfy the urges that they're not getting satisfied elsewhere. So I wonder whether there's an increase in that sort of behaviour because we see it as a crime.
It may be apocryphal, but I hear of students working their way through university. I hear of air hostesses and stewardesses who have that as a kind of second job.
Yeah, I think if it's not illegal to have sex, then it shouldn't be illegal to pay for it.
Yeah,
okay, and that seems to be the general consensus of opinion in the court of public opinion. Now, the other question is, are we over-governed? We got local government, we got state government, we got federal government, and can you imagine the size of the bureaucracy if we ever had a good look at that? Yeah. Now, this is what you have to say.
I believe so.
Do you think that we should abolish state governments and just have local and federal government?
Would free the system up.
Yes. Yes? Should we abolish state governments and just have local and federal government, or do you think there's something else that we should do in order to reduce it?
I think we definitely need state government, but yeah, we definitely live in a nanny country, for sure. Yeah.
I would think that with the 3 tiers of government, probably council would probably be the only level that I would question.
Yeah, I mean, there's a few too many forms of government with state, federal, council, local council, too many in one area to kind of have a whole system. I guess that's what I mean.
Do you think we should abolish something like the state government and just have local and federal government?
Yeah, I think it would make it a lot easier because then people know who to talk to and they know who to go to rather than saying, oh, is this a matter for the state or a local matter and things like that. So they definitely know who to go and speak to.
I'll tell you a quick story. How many people do you think work in the Premier's department?
A few hundred? Hundreds, yes.
Well, when Sir Tom Playford was the Premier, there were 3 people. And one of those was a veteran from the First World War, and he only had 1 arm. And he doubled as the doorman. 3 people in the Premier's department. There are 1,200 people in the Premier's department today. And back in Tom's day, when we actually did things and succeeded at doing things, gee.
That's probably why he stayed in power so long.
Could be. Christine, over-governed.
You know, it's a worry though, because I'd like to see local government deal with things that don't bog down state government and federal government. I'd like to see them have different areas that they are responsible for. I don't really mind the fact that there are 3 tiers. I just wish they didn't do the same thing. So I wouldn't mind if we handed some responsibility ultimately to local government so it never went higher. And I don't want to give away state government, because if we do that, and the Murray is a classic example of that, we lose control over what might affect us as a state. So I see a reason for each, but I don't think we need to duplicate.
Julia?
Or triplicate.
Well, I agree with Chrissy. We need federal, we need state. But however, the local councils, I think, why can't we amalgamate them? Like all the eastern suburbs come as one, then you've got the western suburbs, northern and southern, and amalgamate them. And so we just cut back on all the little councils that we have.
Yeah, Coralie,
that's what
how many people in England? 80 million?
Yeah, I'm not sure.
There's just one government. One government.
But if you look at the federal government, say, being defence, trade, as the big picture for Australia, and then state government, schools, hospitals, etc., and local government collecting garbage, why couldn't those lower levels be merged, as you suggested, or at least, I don't know, even one council area. So one council area for all of Adelaide.
Yeah, well, they do it in Brisbane, don't they? That's huge, huge council area. And on the internet, over-governed, Francesco Centrofonti, we don't need state government. We only have 20 million people here. How many millions could we save? Loads. Well, he didn't exactly say loads. He said something else about that. Miguel Sierra, New Zealand only has federal and local. It's a much easier and cost-effective system. Kate says yes, go further than that one. One country, one government, and one set of rules. Now, the other thing I wanted to chase up was organ donors. Now, for some strange reason, we're not terribly generous when it comes to our unneeded body parts. Spain apparently has the highest rate. They're very generous. When they die, take everything, they say. Then Portugal. Australia is among the lowest of the registered organ donors. 1,700 people on the waiting list at any one time for an organ donation. About 250 organ donors per year, that's all. And 11 donors, I've got to check that up, 11 donors per 1 million people in Australia. That hardly seems reasonable. Now, this is what we found was on your mind on that subject.
Organ donor.
Yes, I am.
And what was it that made you decide to be an organ donor?
To assist and aid others after I've gone, so a legacy can continue on, and assist those that require it who are still on this earth after I've passed.
Yep.
Why did you decide to become one?
If I was in a position where I needed an organ, I'd want one, so I guess if other people are in that position, I'd like to be able to do that's important.
Yes. Why did you decide to become one?
Just to help other people when they're sick, and yeah, just because my mum and dad are.
Yes.
Why are you an organ donor?
I guess there's a really high need for it because, I mean, that's what I've heard in the media, I guess, that you do know that there's a high need, and I don't necessarily feel any inclination to worry about what happens to my body after I die, I guess, where, you know, I don't feel I don't know, some people might have religious beliefs about that. And I guess if you were a donor, the impact, the positive impact that can have on somebody's life is pretty amazing to think.
No, not.
I'm not, no.
I don't think so.
Not
Is
on
there
my...
a reason why you decided not to be one, or?
Not really. I think it's just something more that, like, I do support it and I would be an organ donor, but I think it's more I'd like my family to decide. Like, I don't want to write it down.
Yes, I am.
Why is it that you decided to become one?
Well, I figure that if I'm in an accident and I die, my organs are no good to me anymore. And I'd rather they go to somebody who could use them.
Okay, Andrew Schultz says, flip the rules on organ donations so it's an opt-out approach. If you don't want to donate your organs, then you need to fill out the proper paperwork to stop harvesting occurring. So it's an opt-out arrangement. Kate Gerard says, no, because when your time is up, it's time to go. And, well, you could always say, you know, if you can't take it with you, you just say, I'm not going, I'm not going. See where that gets you. Lisa Wells, I'm definitely an organ donor. I don't need my organs when I'm gone, and it's the ultimate act of kindness and selflessness to do that. Coralie?
I think there's a few things to consider here in that, and obviously, you know, when you're dead, you're probably not going to worry about it too much, but from my understanding, and I might be, you know, incorrect in some of these figures, that you need to actually die in an environment, say in hospital, to be able to harvest the organs, and you obviously need to have the recipient needs to match.
Yeah.
A lot of those organ donors are used for research, not just to save lives, so, you know, for study or research. So there's a little bit more involved, but I mean, it's very much a personal opinion.
Well, how many of you are have you opted in or opted out?
I am.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I am too.
I'm not taking it with me. I mean, I'd rather help and save a life if I could. And that goes for, like, you can donate eyes, you know, your heart, liver. Darren Hinch had a new liver donated by a young lad that tried to commit suicide, and I think the family got onto it.
Well, he gave his own absolute hell. I know that from personal experience.
He did.
Christine?
You know, I think one of the big reasons we're such a small donating country is that it's not spelt out when the organs are taken. And I think there's a lot of confusion among people about... Sorry, we have a problem? There's a lot of issues, sorry.
That's a bird.
Yeah, sorry.
Cheeping in the background.
There's a lot of confusion among people who think that their organs might be taken before they die. And we need to make it very clear that that's not the case. And I think that if that happened, there would be far more people donating organs than there are now. But I also think that, as Coralie said, we need to find out ways of doing it expediently so that more people's lives are saved.
We need to be educated, I think, in this.
That's how it works.
Yeah, but the funny thing about it is the law is weird because I've got that on my driver's licence. So they assume I'm going to cark it in a car. So anyway, there's the driver's licence, but the family can turn around and countermand that. They can say, no, we don't want that. So we've got a crazy system. It doesn't actually deliver what it should be delivering.
So the family needs to know your view on it too.
Yeah, but I understand the figures have got better, but they're nowhere near where they should be.
If you died in a car and were delayed hours getting to the hospital, they'd be no good anyway.
No, and I wouldn't like to think of them keeping me alive just to get my... Well, the liver's probably shot, but they'd probably find something else.
We'll have to look out for another Darren Hinch replacement.
Anyway, to the jury, thank you so much again for your time, and we'll see you next week. Have a great week.
Thank
you too, bye.
This is the Court of Public Opinion.
When you put your arms around me, I get a fever that's so hard to bear. You give me fever. When you kiss me, fever.
Is trust important to you when building life's biggest investment? Well, look no further than Rossdale Homes, a South Australian family-owned company whose mantra is, because trust is a must, has been building quality homes for people like you and me for over 30 years. Rossdale Homes guarantees an absolute fixed price. No hidden extra charges. Choose off the plan or work with their building consultants to design your own. Or visit their website, Rossdale Homes, because trust is a must.
It's a home theatre.
It's an office.
It's a salon.
It's a bar.
It's a garage.
Garage Mahal can transform your shed, carport, garage or undercroft into your favourite room in the house. You'll be surprised with what we can do with that disorganised and messy space. Regardless of your reasons, your lifestyle or hobby, we can create whatever you can imagine. So call Garage Mahal today on 1300 839 353.
you for being with us, and I hope you make a regular date to come and join us in the Court of Public Opinion. And as I said to you, I think last week, we're going to introduce new segments all the time now that we've got a full hour to deal with. And if I keep adding the segments, we'll end up with 2 hours and maybe stay on air the whole time. Who knows? This is one that I think you'll enjoy. It's called Heavy Petting. That's a good idea, isn't it? Ladies and gentlemen, Peter Sellen from the Animal Welfare League and Channel 10, and before that I knew you at 5DN.
5DN and 5AA after that, and
absolutely
35 years in the media here, as you've been in the media quite a long time as well.
Yeah. Well, you're now doing something a lot more useful than I'm probably doing, and that is you're looking after animals and seeking to get them homes.
Yes. Well, the Animal Welfare League's been around nearly 50 years. We do pets, cats and dogs. We adopt them out, we look after them, and the ones that we adopt have been microchipped, vaccinated, desexed, every conceivable health problem issue sorted. So when people buy a pet from us, they know that there's no more further expense. Rather, if you buy a pet from your neighbour or a backyarder,
absolutely
horrendous vet bills, that sort of stuff. So that's what we do. We're about pets, cats and dogs, and we love our job.
And you save lives, and the more of us who will go in and take a pet, a dog or a cat.
That's so.
A dog or a cat that has a life, which otherwise might be in jeopardy, because you can't keep them forever, I gather.
Well, no, we keep them until they're adopted, and we don't get any government assistance at all. It's all a not-for-profit, and some of the other charities and whatnot get a bit of a helping hand. We don't get any of that. We rely on donations from the public, and hence campaigns like I mentioned to you a little while ago, Dine for a Difference for November and December is quite a novel approach. We're asking restaurants, cafes and pubs to donate $2 from one particular meal would go to us, and they get publicity on our website. They get a link to their website, and the very first one to do this was the Hilton down at Mile End. 5,000 Facebook hits in a couple of days.
It's a great idea. When you first told me about that, I thought you said dying for a...
No, dine. So things like that we do, and we're on later on this month with the Semaphore Street Fair. We've got a position there. We've got a Santa with Santa Paws. We're going to take some photos with the dogs and Santa. So yeah, we welcome people to come down and have a look. As it was a great variety of animals there, and we really do look after them. There's boarding. There's all sorts of things we do down there.
And you've got this wonderful volunteer spirit, and God knows you can't do anything really of any meaningful nature without volunteers, and that's wonderful. Coming up to Christmas time, I think a lot of people buy animals on an impulse, and then they don't have a happy outcome.
Well, no, and that's what that's the constant theme with ourselves and all people that deal with pets, is don't buy a pet for someone who doesn't want it, because you know where it'll come
it is a
straight back to us.
Lifetime commitment.
Yeah. I mean, you can say to little Johnny, would you like a cat for Christmas? And if there's great enthusiasm, well, that's fine. That's okay, because it'll be welcomed into the home and be looked after. But if you just say, here, Fred, here's your dog, they'll go, hang on, didn't really want that, and it'll wind up on the street or worse. So,
well, we'll try and help you do the thing that you do. We'll have a pet a week.
Yes.
In fact, you've given us 2 pets this
week.
We've
got, it's a double. There's Pumba and Oliver, and they're the 2 brothers. They're 1-year-old cats. They're almost identical. I don't know where they get the names. I asked the ladies at the shelter who handle all the naming of these pets, because they come in without names, obviously, the strays. And they just go through the phone book, they make them up. It's quite a fascinating process. Pumba.
So how do these 2 come in? I mean, 2...
Well, they get, the council gives us, obviously stray cats, stray dogs come to us via the council.
2 stray cats happen to be brothers.
And people will also have a litter that at home, and they'll bring, if they don't want all of them, they'll give them to us. So they've got them together, and hopefully they can be adopted together, because there's this sibling thing, of course, with
let's try. And we can get that up on the... Yes, okay, so you can have a look at their names again?
Pumba and Oliver.
What will it cost?
$180 for the pair.
All right, let's see if we can get them as a bargain, a package deal.
Absolutely, thank you.
Now, we'll put a link up on our website, which will enable you to follow it straight through to the Animal Welfare League. But what's your website?
It's just awlsa.com.au.
You do wonderful work, and we'll try and help promote what you do.
Thank you very much. Appreciate
it. A week.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Peter.
Scammels, South Australia's specialist estate auctioneers. Visit us at 7 Chapel Street, Norwood, or at www.scammelauctions.com.au.
You gave me
I know what happens. We just blink at this time of the year, and it's Christmas. And there it is. And Christmas is a wonderful time of, families and camaraderie, and I guess we don't kind of wake up our mind to the fact that there are an awful lot of people who probably dread Christmas, because there are kids and there are no toys and maybe no Christmas dinner, and it's just a terrible and demanding time. People might say a very overly commercial time of the year. You can do something about this. Now, on this very day, I don't know if you remember where Toys R Us was on Rundle Mall. Well, that is where Kmart have set up and opened this very day. And part of the opening is to celebrate with the Salvation Army. It's, let me get the years right, Australia's largest Christmas gift appeal, now in its 25th year. Now let me introduce to you Major Bruce Harmer from the Salvation Army. I guess you've just come from the opening.
We've just come from the opening. We've had a wonderful opening, and really happy to celebrate the 25th anniversary with Kmart.
And there is the tree. I haven't seen it yet because it's only just opened, but I'll make a point of having a look. But there is the tree, and underneath the tree you invite people to come and put gifts.
That's right. The gifts don't need to be from Kmart.
No.
But if they'd like to bring them, they don't need to wrap the gifts. Or if they would like, they can wrap the gifts. It doesn't really matter. But place them under there, and Kmart will pass those gifts on to the Salvation Army, and we'll make sure that we distribute them to the people that really need them.
Now, logistically, it would be an incredibly hard job. You'll get thousands, hundreds of thousands probably of toys. How do you, I guess you've got lists of needy people, then you've got Salvationists who have to take them around.
That's exactly right.
Don't know how you do it.
Well, we're expecting to see 300,000 people this Christmas, and certainly we're going to need something like 500,000 gifts here in South Australia. If we could collect, around 55,000 gifts, which would be a little bit up on last year, that would be tremendous.
What I love about your organisation, first of all, it's Christianity with its sleeves rolled up. You don't just stand up there and preach. You really do very good things. And the other thing is, for all of the things we hear and read about churches and organisations, and I never hear anything but good about the Salvation Army.
Well, we certainly do our best, and at this time, Christmas time, many families, especially parents, I'm thinking particularly of parents, really struggle to make Christmas the special time that it should be.
Yes,
not
indeed.
A commercial time, but a special time.
Heartbreaking if you've got a family and they have wants and they have desires, and they turn on the television set and there's the whole new range of things.
That's right.
And it's all beyond them. Well, thank you for being there, and I hope you have a wonderful Christmas, and thank you for the very good deeds that you do, not just at Christmas time, but you do it 24/7, 360.
Well, thank you, and thank you to Kmart for being a partner with us for the last 25 years.
Bless your heart. Court of Public Opinion. Now, don't forget, Kmart, it's that wonderful Christmas tree and an opportunity for you to do some real good.
But just before you do, hey little devil, I'm gonna make it your girl. You're out.
Here's a man who's decorated our wonderful state and done all sorts of amazing things, achieved all sorts of amazing things as well. But I didn't bring Michael Angelakis in to talk about his, orders and...
Why not?
Well,
Greeks have an attitude and a bit of an ego.
There's something more important, I reckon, and I sense you will have an opinion on these marine parks.
You are sure that I certainly have an opinion. I'll start off by saying the attitude given, and the industry's always prejudged that we're pirates, that we're going to plunder and pilferage the seas.
Yeah.
There's no further incident in the truth of that. We would have, without a doubt, in the world, and they've been acclaimed, the world's best managed fisheries, sustainable fisheries. By that I called limited entry. We have closed seasons to protect spawning aggregations. We also check regularly our TACs, which is a total allowable catch, and whether it's our prawns, with our lobsters, our snapper, which is currently closed as a fishery because they're spawning, and then you take that further from netting. Certain parts of the state allowed it to be netted, and And then you look at what else is precious in the state. The Gorgonia reefs, which is the coral reefs off Ordinga, where a lot of divers go to. You look at all the onshore and offshore seal colonies, Point Labatt, Kangaroo Island. You look at the whales that come in to calve from about May to about October. That's when those waters are closed. After that, they open up those waters to go lobster fishing.
Yeah.
So we do all the right things. So to me, it is, unfortunately, a government department that's not in touch with the reality, like the Department of DENA, the environmental, that with loggerheads, well, they're the loggerheads, with the Department of Fisheries, they do such a good job, because no one is better versed than department that eats and breathes fisheries, that understand it. They work with the fishermen, who are our best scientists, because they're out there daily fishing the waters. They notice change.
Yeah, I've always maintained that the farmers and the fishers are really great conservationists, because it's in their interests to preserve.
Absolutely. It's not rocket science, Jeremy.
Yeah.
It is not rocket science.
Well, I smell a rat. I smell a rat with these parks, these marine parks. I did invite Minister Paul Kaika to come on the program, and after some deliberation he declined. I think they're just trying to sneak it through, and well, it's through, I guess, and the Liberal Party said that they had a plan, and then the Labor Party's got a plan, because I guess it's a motherhood thing, isn't it? Let's have a park. No one's going to argue about having a park.
Yeah, but there's only one difference. You can have national parks out in a scrub and all that, and you've got some native wildlife. Either you protect, you don't protect, or you cull. Like the kangaroo is probably one that we do cull because it's a meat-based product.
Yeah.
Well, what are you going to do? We've got to feed people. Our waters provide food.
But 72% of the fish we eat is imported. Now, what is it's going to be 92%, isn't it?
It's heading in that direction. And also, that's going to put pressure on overseas fisheries, which, you know, they might have 1,000 boats, whether it's from Vietnam or India, that go out and fish waters.
And will they know where the boundary is? I mean, there's not a picket fence or a barbed wire fence
fish
there.
don't
So
know.
how do they know?
Fish don't know.
So can you work with this, or are you hopping mad?
No, I'm absolutely hopping mad, because you mentioned Port Caper. I've met him when he was Minister of Fisheries, and I thought he was a fair and reasonable guy. He says, I want to take you out for dinner, which he did. That's when I was inducted into the Premier's Hall of Fame, the Food Awards. And he says, I want to catch up to you to understand your industry. And then no sooner was there a change of government, and he became the Minister for the Environment. Well, if anybody should have a level understanding, and I met with him because I got so livid, I caught up with Rand. I said, Mike, this is wrong. And he says, you know, write to me. I said, which I did, which I found a bit incensed, because I thought we've known each other a lifetime. Then he organised a meeting with Paul Caker. And then I took the Raptors family, who one of the biggest fishermen operators. They've got 2 boats that fish the Great Australian Bight. They've got prawn trawlers, not only here but in the Gulf of Carpentaria and so on. And we sat down with him, and he says, we're delaying this assessment. We'll go through due diligence. What they had was LAGs, local action groups, because it's going to affect, obviously, regional South Australia.
And
so obviously tourism, recreational fishing.
Fishers,
which, as the majority, there's 300 and something thousand recreational fishermen. I said to them, there's a solution to all this, very simple solution. Let's put on a recreational fee on licences for recreationals, like every other state has done in Australia. So other Labor governments have done it if they're concerned about votes, and exclude kids and exclude pensioners. Let's use that money to where we've completed the life cycle, or to complete the life cycle of a variety of marine finfish. Use that to restock the oceans with finfish. Does it make sense? We've done it with so many species that we can do that. Let's use the money also to fix up some of the jetties. If you went to Smoky Bay on the west coast, you see there was a 650,000 cash and kind, what the local community put together as tourist, recreational and the oyster industry in putting shelters on the jetty, filling up boat ramps. Use that money to best serve the community because the resource is community owned.
What I find amazing is that the minister says, I'm the minister for fishing, fisheries, I'd like to get together with you so I understand the business. What the hell is he the minister for fisheries if he doesn't understand it?
Well, if I've had, I've gone out, I've sat with Gago, I've spoken to her about fisheries.
Yeah.
I had an hour and a half meeting in my office, and then I hosted a boardroom lunch for Jay Weatherall to go through marine parks, and then I mailed him all the dot points that we discussed, the things that I'm, discussing with you at the moment, that there are solutions, there are better solutions than being reactive.
Yeah, I've got a theory, and it is that the federal government and opposition maybe as well, and the state government, they have decided that it looks awfully good to the United Nations. Why we need to look good for the United Nations or not, I don't know.
And that's the trouble. Can I honestly tell you, our industry battles to pay cost recoveries and other things. There's not enough money in the system because they're the only ones that get taxed for all the things that we need. All this R&D, restocking the oceans. And this is where the money would come in from recreationals. Now, there's a lot of money, mega millions, that come in from overseas. That someone reckons, oh, this is a good cause, let's put our money. So there's far more political pressure on these groups, minority groups, that are going to come in and attack the industry or take up another issue, because it's a good feel issue and public sentiment is out there, wow. But unfortunately, fishermen don't get the right of reply as a few thousands or a few 100,000 fishermen all right.
You're too busy to be militant.
Well,
you're too busy to get organised and take them on.
Too busy trying to make a livelihood, Jeremy, in this current climate.
And pay your taxes and all the rest.
Exactly.
Sure. Michael, I think we will have people in the court of public opinion who would like to think about this, because I think it's just sort of been slipped through to the keeper and we all haven't been told enough to make an informed decision. But I appreciate your intelligence on it, I really do, and I thank you for coming in.
Well, thank you for hearing the voice.
Congratulations! I saw your front page paper.
Wasn't a good look, was it?
No, it was a great look.
No, it wasn't. I should have. Wish I could button it up a bit more.
That's another award you've got.
I know. Well, we'll talk about that another day.
Michael Angelakis. Now we've got to go, but what I'd like to do is to just leave you with a couple of images of. Don't laugh. Jacaranda trees. Up in New South Wales, northern New South Wales, there's a place called Grafton, and they have a Jacaranda festival. But I tell you, the trees at this time of the year, and we kind of look at this time of the year and have a certain fear about bushfires, but we also have a lot of beautiful things that happen, and nothing nicer in our city than street after street of these beautiful blue Jacaranda trees in full bloom. So I'll leave you with those. This has been Jeremy Cordeaux. Believe in yourself. Have a great week. Thanks to our sponsors and our cast and our crew, and we'll see you next time. Bye from the Court of Public Opinion.
Keep a dream in your pocket and a song in your heart. Keep the lamp of your learning burning bright. Keep your eye on your horizon and a smile on your face as you travel down the highway of your life. Don't listen to those voices that say it can't be done. They build walls where there was never one before. No, there's nothing that can stop you, nothing that can drag you down, if you keep looking for that ever-open door. So if you follow your dream to the end of the road, taking care not to let it fade away, not fade away. If you follow your dream and you follow it well, it will lead you to the promise of a bright shiny day. Well, imagine if Columbus had not dreamt the world was round, and Armstrong had